creators, it's Claire from Stringworth with Goldwork, lesson number 2 completed. And the first thing, cover your work when it's not in progress because you get way less cat hair on it. That is a great tip. So let me uncover this and let's see what happened in lesson 2. And I have some questions that I asked the facilitator, so I will ask and answer those with you. And I'm going to bring you in for a close-up on some of these, but this is where we are at after lesson 2. And on lesson 2 we worked on this figure 8, although in my case it began its life as 2 unconnected circles, learning the technique of staggered start. Figure 8, although it is intended to be 2 circles and then connected. And the staggered start is starting the inner thread, the twist, in 2 different points. So there's 2 pieces here, and in order to manage what's on the back of the fabric, not to have too many starts in the same place, making a bulky, kind of hard to manage area, you stagger the start. So the inner start starts just here, and then the outer start is just here. So they're about, what, half a centimetre apart, which makes it much easier to manage on the back. You then intended to go over them with this little stitch that holds them down to cover that gap, to cover that start. And you can see that is much more successful on my 4th attempt with this inner circle. It's really quite difficult to see that actually that inner circle starts and ends on that little stitch here. Then we worked on the corded padding, which is this section. In the corded padding then, the idea was to try different stitches to give that effect of the padding, to have that wave effect as it goes up and down, to have see how you start things, to see how things curl, just lots of different practices. And the intention was to try to cover this up, to see how that changes, how the technique you need to do changes as your padding goes around corners, as your padding becomes kind of layered, as your padding becomes, 3 pieces rather than 1. Really just practicing that, adding straight lines, which is much more difficult than you think it is, and keeping those holding stitches in place. And you can see kind of here my holding stitches really just kind of waver much better along the top. Here again wavering, but that is also to do with the curving of the couching thread, this one, and this was the Jap thread. In terms of questions then, the ones I had, the ones you may have if you're starting on your Goldwork journey. Firstly, ordering supplies. It took me so long to order supplies for my other project. And I asked around, like, how do you estimate how many supplies you need? Because the threads have batches, just like wool has batches. So you want to be ordering the right amount the first time and also not paying multiple batches of postage. So it really is a measure, like, if you wanted to go around this circle, you could use some just regular thread, measure that, and then add enough for, going through the back if you want to be able to do that. And then some, contingency factor. So the suggestion was order more than you need, but also that is expensive. So there's a balance in there. In terms of where do you order supplies from, if you're in Australia, the one I ordered my supplies from that was just the best selection, the widest selection of colours, of metal colours like gold and silver and copper, and then like actual colours. The variety of the metal threads as well was Alice & Cole. In terms of backing, so as we can see, it's not the prettiest back. So if you wanted to do something other than frame it, I was like, how are you going to go about that? So my project, I want to create a brooch, not with this, that would be a big brooch. It would be so if you say you wanted to take this leather card and make that into a brooch, cut around it, leaving yourself plenty of room to work with, and then take like a card or a corflu, something solid in kind of the size you want. So that may be slightly wider than the design, or maybe just to the edge of the design, to give you that stability in the back. Then from there, you're going to turn the front fabric over and lace across the back. So you're getting some of that tension. And obviously in knowing that, think about what shape you're going to make. So it would obviously be much easier to make this an oval and lace the oval nicely than it is to have the crossing of the lace on a heart shape. Once you have that in place, then you can put another backing over the lace so that the back is neat and the sides are neat and it has that solid structure. Because obviously once I take this off the frame, or once you take your project off the frame, it has no tension of its own. It has no structure of its own. It's really just fabric with threads. Like, yes, it will have some resistance because the threads are metal, but you want to add that inner layer of something with quite a bit of structure to hold. I talked briefly in the video on my project, I talked about design transfer. So getting the design, maybe it's a square, onto the fabric, particularly on the dark. Chalk wasn't doing it for me. The erasable pens would be no good really on black fabric. So just, if you can, outline the shape in a running stitch. It can be any thread, waist thread, just a thread that's got a little contrast that you can kind of transfer the design onto. Big long stitches, it doesn't have to be detailed, it's not final work, it really just is that guideline you need to do your design. That is the product of 8 hours worth of work. So it's intensive, it's precise, it is also quite fun, and I'm having fun, just as I say, playing with different things, different techniques. I am loving the red contrast thread. I really think I'm going to do something fun with that. Those were a few of the lessons, some of the learning, some of the tips, and some of the things I learned in 2 lessons of Goldwork, and very much the beginning of my Goldwork journey. If I didn't say, I went to the classes held by the Bathurst Embroidery Guild. They meet on Friday. Apparently they're very welcoming of visitors. So if you're ever in Bathurst on a Friday, I would very much encourage you to go and check them out. And now we go on to, what am I going to do with this? Well, I'm probably going to take this apart. Really good fabric, love the dark contrast, very high quality felt, ready-made for something fabulous, a little bit more advanced than what I have here. Yes, of course, it's really useful to learn the techniques, but I don't think I need to keep this forever. Then my own project, I hope you come and follow along that journey. And if you are creating Goldwork, let me know. I would love to see some of the pieces you create.